video covers the installation of the TheRamManINC manual locking hubs on a 2006 Dodge Ram 3500. Subject vehicle, the 3500 dually with 5.9 Cummins turbo diesel and 6-speed manual transmission, which factor into my decision to install this upgrade. There are a number of different sources that attest to the benefits of being able to unlock front hubs, which are based on a reduction of rotating mass and a drivetrain, including improved usable horsepower gains, improved braking, and extended drivetrain component life. The main reason that I chose to do this upgrade is to transform my 4-low into 2-low. With 6-speed manual, it is often necessary to feather the clutch when backing up into the trailer or backing the trailer into tight spaces. 4-wheel low provides a deep gear reduction that enables slower movement, but it is not a good option for hard surface driving, especially if sharp turning is required due to the potential for front axle binding. This isn't an issue with vehicles that have automatic transmissions or the capability to operate in a 2-wheel drive mode with the transfer case in low. The subject vehicle didn't have any of those capabilities prior to the conversion. And while these units were not designed to be used in this manner, they create a capability that might be useful for drivers with vehicles with manual transmissions. As far as level of difficulty, my opinion is that the TheRamManINC manual locking hubs are easy to install and maintain than the OEM parts that they replace. Here is a list of most of the tools and equipment that I use. In some cases, I use different tools for assembly and disassembly. I did the maintenance in the automotive maintenance shop. However, this installation can be done at home as many others have proven. I use no special tools. Of note, for disassembly, I use a lot of freeze-off on just about everything. It's my preferred brand of penetrating oil, and it seems to be more active and persistent than many other popular brands. These are all the parts that I installed. I also installed new brake rotors, pads, and calipers. TheRamManINC sent all of these parts via U.S. Post Office priority mail, which took only about 2 or 3 days. I think it all came in 5 large flat rate boxes. The locking mechanisms, step shafts, and hub and bearing assemblies come with all the manual locking hub kits. The dualies require wheel adapters, so these were included in this kit. You have to send your old wheel adapters back to the TheRamMan as a core. Not included in the kit are 2 axle U-joints I purchased from a local parts store. There are several options to choose from. Moog part number 464 is one of the higher end units and better quality, in my opinion. This isn't a detailed installation video. There are already several videos out there that are really well done. These are just a few that helped me get off to a good start and made the job pretty straightforward. First is the video that convinced me that this was a job that I was capable of doing. He walks you through all the important steps of the disassembly and installation. Next is the link to the TheRamManINC YouTube channel. There are several useful videos on this channel, and for even more, you can visit his webpage. The 2 most difficult steps for me were disassembling the U-joints and removing the hubs, but were both made relatively easy with the help of the remaining 2 videos. While I won't go into detail through the entire job, it's worth further explaining what you'll see in that first video on hub removal using the vehicle's power steering. This is the placement of the improvised pressing tool between a frame and a flange hub mounting bolt. For the pressing tool, I'm using a deep 18mm impact socket with a 5-inch extension. My geometry is slightly different than what you'll see in the video link. However, the principle is the same. Here's the motion during a right turn. This motion causes force to be applied to the frame through the improvised pressing tool. Counterforce from the frame through the tool is applied to the flange hub mounting bolt that is still partially threaded into the hub. Here's the point of separation between the hub and the steering knuckle. Here's a view from the back side. Note, each of the flange hub bearing bolts are backed out of the hub about a 1/2 inch or so, which provides a space for the tool to force the bolt and hub to move. Here's the counterforce applied through the improvised pressing tool. and this represents the amount of movement possible based on how far the bolts are backed out. Keep in mind, the geometry is not perfect, meaning that with all the angles and arcs of movement, the hub won't press perfectly straight out. I use this technique just to break the bond and create a 1/4 inch crack or so where I could wedge in a pretty hefty chisel and hammer the hub out evenly. The last video link that I referenced under hub removal showcases a pretty handy special hub pulling tool that seems reasonably priced. After disassembly, I cleaned everything up. Unfortunately, time didn't permit me to remove all of the dirt and surface rust. The next time I get into this area, I like to do some cleaning and paint, but it wasn't essential based on my priority of work for this job. I used a Dremel tool to clean up the surface of the knuckle that the hub slides through. I also coated it with anti-seize during this step. These are the axle shafts assembled with the new U-joints. Again, lots of videos on this step. I use a tooth socket and vise technique on one side and a socket and hammer technique for the other. Both required about 10 to 20 minutes of heat from a propane torch. Well, it may not have been required, but I wanted to be extra careful to not break the ears of the axle shafts. Assembly involved much less drama. Also, I oriented the grease fittings inboard so that I could get to them with my grease gun easily while they're installed. Axle shafts went in easy. It's important to make sure they're seated all the way prior to attempting to install the TheRamManINC hubs, especially if you're installing the hubs as one piece. I did it both ways. The first time, I installed the hubs and then assembled the locking mechanisms on them separately, but then I pulled them back off to put anti-seize on the side that I had forgotten and put it back on as a single complete unit. Both were easy. This probably would have been a better time to use the anti-seize after installing the axle shafts. I spent a lot of effort trying to avoid touching the surface while installing the shafts my way. Here's the dust shield installed. Here's the hub with wheel speed sensor installed. And here's the rotor installed. Slid right over the hub with no issues at all. Here's a comparison of the original wheel adapters with the replacement adapters that are machined to fit over the TheRamManINC hubs. You're not going to use your old wheel adapters. You send in the OEM adapters as a core for the TheRamMan to have machined for the next customer. I don't have video of the transfer of the lug bolts, but it was relatively simple. I beat the lugs out of the OEM adapters with a sledgehammer and used a brass punching sledgehammer to beat them into the new one. A few were a bit stubborn and required me to use an impact wrench with socket to draw them through to ensure that they were fully seated. When doing this, I used more penetrating oil as lube for the lug nuts to protect the threads of the lugs and nuts. Here are the wheel adapters installed. You'll notice here and in the image of the completed project that the TheRamManINC hubs do not protrude out past the wheel adapters, which means there are several wheel covering options available, including factory wheel covers to choose from. And this is the last image of installation. I don't include the installation of the brake pads and calipers because that wasn't the purpose of this video. Here you can see the hubs installed with the wheels mounted both with and without factory wheel covers. Factory hub covers aren't as practical as I'd like, so I'm currently looking at different options to include running bare wheels. Here you can see the rotation of the hubs while locked as I turn the drive shaft. Here you can see there's no binding as I spin the drive shaft with the T-case in neutral, simulating torque transfer to the differential. The axle shafts turn, but not the hubs because they're in free spin mode. This is how the two-wheel drive low is created. Here's a demonstration of the vehicle in operation. The transmission is in first and the T-case is in 4 low. The TheRamManINC hubs operating in free spin, creating a 2 low. Prior to this installation, I'd never be able to turn this smoothly in 4 low on this kind of hard surface. It wouldn't be such a big deal if the vehicle had been equipped with an automatic transmission or a transfer case or front axle that enabled unlocking, but this vehicle was not so equipped with any of those options. that's it. My opinion is Chrysler got a lot of things right with that truck. However, one thing they got wrong was those front hubs. And Ram Man provides the solution to get them right. Hey, thanks, Ram Man.